Everybody wants the most money, for sure.
Yes, you need to get X dollars from your house, but you also need to realize you need to get a buyer who's going to purchase your house that can line up closing dates, that can do their due diligence in the time frame that you need them to, and pay the right.
But there might be another offer on the table that's $10,000 less than that one.
And it's streamlined and done. I will gamble on the offer that is $20,000 more, but they have another house they need to sell.
The Red Chair Podcast. Real truth behind real people in real estate.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Red Chair Podcast. My name is April. I'm your hostess with the mostest, and we're so glad you've joined us here again today. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to the Red Chair Podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, hit that bell for notifications when we get new episodes coming up for you. And we're so glad you've joined us today. We've got another great topic to talk about, and we've got an excellent guest with us who is going to bring us through the conversation regarding strategic pricing. So you've got a house that you've got listed for sale, and you know the headlines are screaming, the market is hot, the market is hot. But is it really? And how do we price strategically if the market is hot, if it's busy? So I've got an expert with me here today who's going to answer all those questions. Welcome, Mike, to the show today.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're so glad that you've joined us. So Mike, let's start just kind of telling us about yourself. What's your background? How long have you been doing real estate?
You bet. Yeah. So licensed 8 years now, always with LePage and always in Victoria, which is basically where I grew up. Background a little bit. I'm one of the people that was sitting in a high school classroom and always wanted to get into real estate. I didn't know what it necessarily consisted of when I got that idea in my head, but kind of went through the motions to eventually get there. I come from a background like my bachelor's, I have in a marketing degree, which applies very well for obviously our line of work. And prior to getting into real estate, I also ran one of those summer painting businesses with StudentWorks for probably about 7 years, which actually taught me more than what I learned in kind of the traditional school system, which was hiring individuals, doing quotes, handling employees, and learning how to kind of talk to adults in a professional setting, which especially when I was 20 and 21 running that business, it was a huge asset, which I think has played off and played out to being a big factor into where I am today.
Totally, yeah. So you would have done like a lot of door knocking.
A lot of door knocking endlessly kind of throughout the winter to kind of build things up for the summer. And definitely a huge aspect of it, and many other aspects that kind of play into what we do kind of today with selling houses.
So good. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, we're glad to have you. So we're going to talk about pricing. We're going to talk a little bit about prepping your listing if you're at that point where you're like, yeah, we need to sell. Maybe you're upsizing, downsizing, relocating, and you've got some things that you need to consider in order to get that best price. So my first question to you sort of is around talking about first impressions. You got to put the house up for sale. You've got kids. You've got crayon on the walls. You've got
sounds like my house at home.
Some stain on your carpet that you don't even remember what that was, and so getting things prepped. So question for you is this: what are the top 3 things that a seller can do before the sign goes on the lawn?
Well, I think part of it plays into how much lead time we have. So that conversation, people sell for a number of different reasons. It can be job relocations that need to get into a particular city in a fast period of time. Well, that limits on all the steps that we can do. If we are planning for something months out, then it's a different conversation where we can really hit on all these things. Like, you will hear some of the similar information through, social media or speaking with other realtors, but getting things like decluttering, getting a house cleaned up, like, it's not necessarily rocket science, but it does really apply and gives people kind of a clean slate when walking through a home, and that neutral kind of feeling. Decluttering being one of them. Personally, I'm a big advocate for first appearances at a house. That could be repainting the front door, having, as simple as it is, again, having the lawn cut out front for when we do photos, because that's the first step of when everybody sees everything online, putting mulch down at the house, having that first impression at a house, I think goes a really long ways to giving people that warm, fuzzy, excited feeling about checking out the rest of the house. We'll talk about this more later on, simple things that you can do as well. having the house repainted. Like, again, you hear these things over and over again, but there's a reason for it.
Right.
That all play into big factors into selling the house and selling it well.
Yeah, and I like what you said just around timing, because maybe the house does need to be repainted, but you've got to sell this thing and you've got to relocate and start a new job in less than a month. That might not be a realistic expectation.
You bet. And it's prioritizing everything that kind of comes with it. What can we do in this period of time? How much money do we want to invest in it to get out of it on the other side? It's an ongoing conversation, really.
Yeah. And I think, too, some of the things, and we can talk about this later, but like I think about sometimes people listing their house during different seasons.
Yes.
And so, like, there's a Christmas tree up in the photos, and then maybe the house is taking a little bit longer. Like, houses are sitting on the market a little bit longer right now. So
it's always funny because the couple days of the year that we see that we get snow, and how 4 months have gone on, and that photos were done in January, and the house is still sticking on the market with snow all over the yard. So
so being really conscious of those types of things too. Yeah, and that's, I think, part of the important piece that the realtor plays in the equation. It's like keeping track of some of those things and saying, okay, it's now spring, we got to get that picture out and get a fresh one. Or
you got it.
Take the tree down, whatever. That's good. So that's good. So those first impressions count. So again, what I'm hearing is, depending on the time frame, if you've got the time and the budget, of course, too, right?
Yeah.
Because repainting a house, for instance, is going to cost you a significant amount of money.
It can play into it for sure. And that it all comes down to priorities. And at the end of the day, it's our job as a realtor to kind of provide the options, our opinion.
Yeah.
The homeowner makes the final decision when it really it comes to what they want to do, the finalized pricing, like that's their financial asset.
Yeah.
But we do our best to kind of make recommendations from our experience and kind of guide things along the way.
Right. It's good. So obviously, I don't know a seller that sits there and says, you know what, I'm going to settle for whatever price you can get me. Obviously, they want the best price, the highest price.
Of course,
they want to take as much money as they can with them when they go. So the question around pricing becomes a big part of this. So we've talked a little bit about those first impressions, but those first impressions will pay out somehow too. So how does the right pricing strategy actually lead to a higher sale price?
So there's a few things that play into it. Funny enough, linking back to timing as well. It depends on what kind of market we're in. Like post kind of COVID, where we saw this big boom for 18 months, 2 years, things would have a habit of going into multiple offers, and then the true market value would kind of trickle itself out. We are currently in a market where we're very balanced, and it depends on kind of what area of Greater Victoria you're in as well. But there is something to be said for the visual aspect of pricing, $999,999 versus $1 million. Like there is something to be said for that. When people see that, it's the same thing. Like you go into a Walmart or Thrifties or whatever it may be. There's a reason why everybody prices things that particular way. Because you look at something that's $5.99, it's not $6, it's $5.99. So you look at it at $5. So it does play a factor into it. And there are certain thresholds to kind of keep in mind. Again, the $1 million one for a number of particular reasons is visually something. If you're under it, it makes something look a whole lot more attractive.
Right.
Same thing under 1.2, under 750, under 500. Like those do all play into it. The other kind of big aspect there as well is how other realtors will help clients find houses. And this is part of it is through something called an auto email. So it's where we plug in information for a buyer saying that they're approved for a purchase up to $700,000. Well, if someone's pricing a house at $710,000, $715,000, you might not have the same exposure because these listings aren't getting emailed over to the potential buyers.
Right.
So a lot of the time I will work in increments when listing a property, if clients are on board, to do things at, say, 700 or 725, 750, because a lot of the time these increments online are set in $25,000 bunches. So trying to stay within that, doing 725 instead of 729, getting more people through the door, and hopefully selling the property quicker, being able to defend a price point because we're less days on market. Like it all kind of trickles together. But yeah, two kind of different things to keep in mind with that.
Yeah. So there's lots of factors there about pricing. So, I think post-pandemic, I believe that there are still some sellers out there that think that they can still get that pandemic pricing.
Yep. Yeah.
And so navigating that, I think, with sellers is really important, saying we're in a completely different market now. And sort of at the time of this taping, we're, summer of 2025. So if you're watching this, a year from now, it could be a completely, and likely will be a completely different market. And so your goal is to talk to the seller based on the market at that time, not just based on, well, Joe down the street sold 2 years ago for, 50,000 more than you're suggesting.
And that's what sticks in people's minds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's really hard to get them to, no, but Joe, his place sold, and so talk a little bit about what kind of conversations you're having with people at that point. Like,
yeah, so
because you don't want to hurt their feelings, but also you got to be
definitely,
realistic.
it's a delicate aspect.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't provide like accurate information. And we'd be doing disservice, honestly. Like, it's our job to provide an opinion and not necessarily sugarcoat everything always. But there is, obviously, you do need to be polite throughout the whole process as well. I'm a big advocate of using statistics. Like, we have very good access to data showing what properties are selling for compared to the list price, the days on market. We can narrow in on sub neighborhoods, for example, and seeing that this is moving quicker than the other side of the highway and stuff like that. Being able to pull the old listings that have sold since the time that things were crazy and the condition of the homes. There can be a scenario where you're listing a condo in a building and there's 2 other ones listed, but an individual will think theirs is worth more. Well, let's go check out the other 2 and compare. And you tell me if you think yours is X amount of dollars better. You very well may be correct, but chances are they're relatively similar at the end of the day. So they do all kind of play into it. Yeah.
And that can be a hard conversation because I think every seller thinks that theirs is the diamond in the rough.
Yeah, like 100%, and they have an emotional attachment to their home. Like, there are, your kids might have grown up in the house. You have a door where the lines are of kids' height and everything like that. Speaking of that, funny story, I had a client move into a house and the gentleman took the bedroom door and it took us weeks to actually get it back because it had big sentimental value to them. And it was a very custom door. Like, the next process was to mill a particular door, which we were in the process of doing. Eventually it was returned to us, thankfully, but that was kind of a funny one. It all does play into it, where how the process went for a neighbor, how quick they sold it, because there might be one particular buyer that just happened to want to move to the street and they got that particular price, but that's not necessarily what the average is for that area and whatnot. But
So let's go through your process a little bit. So we've talked about, prepping your home, pricing it strategically. When you go to meet with the seller, kind of go through the process of what the conversation looks like.
Yeah, so typically when myself or my business partner, Brendan, will go and meet with clients about pricing out a house, it's figuring out what's the motivation, like what is the reason for the move? Is this something that we're looking at now, or are we getting an idea of the value to then decide what the plan is down the road, sort of thing? And finding out that conversation can play, again, into the pricing, like how quick we need to move, or are we in a position where we can technically be on the market a little bit longer, knowing that once you've sold it, you can downsize, and there's plenty of options depending on your search criteria that might fit the next move. Typically, we do 2 visits. So there's no way in my mind someone can price out a property without going and having a look at it first. So you can't just show up and say, your property's worth $700,000 and you'll get maybe $675 to $700. Like, that's not realistic. You have no idea what kind of upgrades someone has done to the property. You have no idea the exposure in like the backyard, how private it is, all this kind of stuff. Like, we have data online, but there are particular aspects. You have to walk through a house and kind of get an idea of how it flows and how it feels and everything like that. So typically we'll do 1 visit where sitting down, potentially we know the individual that's selling, potentially we don't. We introduce ourselves, ask them a slew of questions to kind of figure out what's going on. And then we can kind of return at a later date, a couple days later, when we've had a chance to really crunch that information, return with the statistics saying what's going on in the market or the neighborhood and everything like that, and then kind of go through in detail what the potential price band of a house might be, and then how we're going to kind of go through the motions to sell the house in relatively quick order.
Right. So typically speaking then, on that first visit, you're really not going to be talking numbers. You're really going to be sort of talking more about like motivation, time frames, and also maybe some of that, the things that you can start doing for prep.
Exactly.
And then you're going to come back with that second meeting, and that's where you're going to show the comparables.
You bet. Then you can kind of dive into it a little bit more, comparable statistic, what the listing process actually looks like. Because a lot of people, either they haven't sold a property before, maybe they're a first-time home buyer, and they've purchased, and they recognize some of the paperwork, but they don't actually understand how properties are showed, how they're accessed by other realtors, what happens if an offer comes in, all these slew of things to kind of keep in mind. So it's kind of either a review or going over the whole process for the first time sort of thing. And then recommendations that we'll typically make for, trying to get the property sold.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've been through the process before, and usually the comparables that are shown are, recent sales, maybe properties that have expired. Maybe they just didn't, they were on the market for too long. Maybe they weren't priced properly, and so they just get taken off and, well, we'll try next spring or whatever. And then active listings. For a seller, what's the best data that they should be looking at? The actives or the,
Depends on the market
best?
that we're in.
Okay.
Definitely depends on the market. So when things were crazy hot a few years ago, we would look at pending. So pendings are listings that have sold, deposits have been paid, buyers have done their due diligence, and they're waiting to move in. So that's kind of the most accurate information for what happened right away. Right now we're in a market where, say, greater or in the core in Victoria, single-family homes, for example, on average we're up about 1% in price. Okay, so we're still climbing, but you can move that time band out farther, right? You can look at potentially what's closer geographically to a house, because Victoria is very, in my mind, location sensitive, depending on different municipalities, different rules, all this kind of stuff. And you can focus in a lot more on location because we haven't seen massive changes in price compared to, again, 2021, where we were climbing so quick. Sold listings that were 30 days, 60 days old are almost out of date already. So we had to use pendings. Actives do play a part in it. I think more so as a comparison sake of what your house looks like compared to this. How long have they been on market? So has someone been on the market 70 days? They've stayed the same price. They haven't had any offers. They're probably too high because they're not selling, matched to what the average days on market kind of currently is. So,
so there really is so many pieces that you're looking at.
Each part of it plays into it, and also what kind of market you're in. The other aspect of that as well is expired and cancels. Like, what didn't sell on the street and why didn't it sell? Were you too high? Did the sellers pull off the listing because the house they were trying to go for fell through for whatever reason? They pulled their house off the market after 5 or 6 days kind of thing because they were trying to do a subject to sale. There's the more research you can do, the more accurate more accurate information you can kind of pass along to a seller, and ideally the more streamlined the whole process can kind of be.
Right. So a skilled realtor is really going to dig and get all of that data. Those expires, why did they expire? You're going to be calling those listing agents and saying, hey, what's the deal there? What was the history on that?
You bet. And knowing the other agents play a big factor in like getting that information. Also, again, we can talk about this later, but knowing the other agents on the other side of the transaction is, in my mind, one of the best and biggest things, part of selling a home in quick order or for a particular price point, when you know if an agent can kind of get deals across the finish line, and the experience that you've had with them in the past.
That's interesting. That's a big piece of it too. And so I think, we can talk about that even right now. It's like, having good connections within the real estate community, within your sphere of colleagues, not just within your brokerage, but across the, the real estate board. That's an interesting piece for the agents that are listening to this podcast, because everybody listens to this podcast. And so if you're not well connected, I think that's an important piece of it, like getting to know those agents that are going to sort of help to navigate this sale and really support you through it. So
you bet. Yeah, it helps having the other individual on the other side. It is one of the things that I'm the biggest advocate for, kind of like kill people with kindness. Obviously, you're representing your client throughout the whole process, but there is something to be said for if there's a multiple offer scenario, you've done a number of deals with a particular agent, they represent their clients very well. They know the process, what needs to be done. They can understand particular aspects of a house already. That can help things kind of along and help out the process for the seller sort of thing. Another part of that is Realtors might be part of networking tours or networking groups. So I'm part of a couple myself where we can bounce ideas off of other agents. Right now, we have rules regarding how long we can talk about a listing before it hits the open market, right? So typically, for what we have right now is 3 days. We might meet with a networking group every couple weeks. We tour each other's listings. And if you can line that up correctly, and we had this with the listing we recently had, we were able to get feedback from the other agents on particular things because everyone comes from a different background on what they see, interior design, construction, all this kind of stuff, and you can get really good information. So for this particular house, due to cooking style and location being much more tree covered and stuff like that, we got feedback about getting the house to breathe really well and like freshen up that smell for people coming through the door the first time over. But having those networking tours, getting feedback kind of throughout the process is incredibly advantageous.
Yeah, that can be really powerful because you're one person, right? And you're giving your opinion based on your experiences, but the seller can sometimes, be like, well, I don't care about any of that. I just want my house sold and whatnot. So to have that backing of some additional voices within the industry that can say, you're right, that doesn't work the way it should, and you can pass that along to your client as well. That can hopefully motivate them to make some better choices about getting it sold. So that's really good. Okay, let's talk about marketing for a second. So, certainly when you're selling, we see so much social media these days, beautiful drone footage of properties and excellent high-end marketing. So let's talk a little bit about marketing tactics that are important when you're selling your house. What are some things that maybe you do or that you see that are really beneficial for getting that house sold?
So I guess it comes back to kind of some of the networking tours, talking about it with other realtors when the opportunity's there, because if people have ready-to-go buyers, that can play into it right away. You never know where a buyer is going to come from for a house. So I'm not really an individual that tries one thing and then says, we'll try this later on. If we can't get an offer in 2 weeks, maybe then we'll try open houses or online leads. I think that's a kind of sloppy, lazy way to go about it. You don't know where that buyer's coming from. You need to try kind of everything off the get-go to get the best exposure on the property, because the quicker you get an offer, the less days on market, the better grounds you have to defend a particular price point that you have. Again, there's particular aspects out there, like open houses. According to National Association of Realtors, you will technically only sell a property through open house about 4% of the time. It's actually a lot lower than most people realize. And part of that is because they're not necessarily qualified buyers or their neighbors and stuff like that. But an open house is good because you can have a showing on a Thursday with the realtor that's already representing them. And they come back and have a second look on a Saturday or a Sunday. And then they see the open house and all the people that are there and potentially all the neighbors come through. They don't know that they're not qualified buyers, but you can make a house look busier and make it have the appearance that a lot of people are interested in it, and maybe that brings people forward. So while they weren't unrepresented, just started looking at houses through an open house, it might be that second look that helps things along, or they already have an accepted offer, they're coming through, they see it's busy, they don't want to lose the deal, kind of thing. So those are kind of different things that can play into it. Social media is a big aspect of it. Like it's one of those things that I think is just like the standard, or should be by today's world. It's relatively easy to put things out on social media through platforms like Instagram, Facebook. For those on TikTok, power to you. That's another system to kind of go for as well. And it's just more exposure along the way, and it stays consistent as well. Like when we list a property, I like to have the best photographer around that I can hire. It takes a little longer to book them because they're in high demand, but there's a reason for that, because the first impression is typically online. People are looking at photos, they're looking at a 3D tour or video, and that's what pulls them into the house. So having that all done and done consistently, I think, is important. Same thing for our social media. Like we'll do video on pretty well every listing, because I have clients that will follow us on social media and they see videos on listings. So it's important to stay consistent so they get that same level of service kind of through and through the entire process.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, it's years ago, because I'm that old. I was an agent for a good portion of my life, and we just took all of our own photos with our own little
Yeah.
handheld
And that stands out
Canon
now.
cameras.
That stands out. It was. I think that the bar has gotten so much higher now
Yes.
that you can really see that difference in a big way.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And nowadays, if you see, a certain set of pictures that look like they were taken from somebody's iPhone, you know it. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not really acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
It's like
And
the bar has been set very high.
100%. So those are kind of in my mind, just like the standards. And then when listing a property, to some degree, you don't know where the buyer is going to come from. Mainland, elsewhere in the country, Victoria, first-time home buyer, downsizer. You can get a bit of an idea.
Yeah.
You can get an idea that the 400 square foot studio condo downtown without parking is more so going to be a first-time home buyer.
Right.
And you tilt your marketing a little bit that way to gear towards someone as a first-time home buyer. Maybe in your print material, the package that we have at the house, maybe we're breaking down what it looks like for the purchase price, traditional 20% down payment or 5%, whatever it may be, and what those monthly payments might look like, so that if someone has the savings and they're looking at what they're paying for rent, maybe it makes sense to make a first purchase. Right. Same sort of thing for downsizing. Potentially, we're talking more about community walkability to particular stores and stuff like that. You don't want to go too much one way, but there is something to be said for targeting it a little bit towards who that buyer is going to be for a particular house in a particular neighborhood. Talking about school districts, the elementary schools, middle schools, stuff like that, and kind of highlighting those.
Yeah, bus lines,
for
all
sure.
those types of things that are important.
Yeah.
So in the home, part of your procedure then is you're going to have some print media there for people that walk through. They're going to be able to take like a feature sheet or something like that.
Yeah.
You're going to have that, the photographs, like the digital media, that's part of it. So let's pretend I'm just a seller right now and I'm watching this and I'm going, that sounds very expensive. Like, am I, as the seller, paying for all of this media?
It's a good question.
Like, I want to know.
Yeah, so it is all coming out of the commissions related to a sale. So on the listing side, you are paying basically the selling agent to bring a buyer agent forward. Mm-hmm. So those commissions are split, typically, should be down the middle.
Yeah.
Half goes to a buying agent bringing the buyer and going through the due diligence, and half going to the listing agent kind of going through the process of listing the property.
Right.
Should be included in those commissions is everything that it takes to sell a property. Photos, floor plans, video, 3D tour, online ads, advertising potentially in a newspaper if it's going to hit on that demographic for a particular property. Maybe it's heavier for online leads, stuff like that. Maybe you have a particular listing that's going to appeal to more of a luxury side of things, people downsizing from Vancouver or whatnot. Like, there's certain things that you can tilt it and allocate the funds accordingly, sort of thing. But yeah, in the commissions, that's then on the agent to get a house sold. Like, that's the process.
Typically then, like, you're hiring the photographer, the drone, all these things. I'm not getting those bills as the seller, am I?
That's correct. And everything comes after the fact with the proceeds of the sale. So when a house is unconditionally, might close 6 weeks later, you're sitting down with the lawyer, you're going over what's called a statement of adjustments, which breaks down what the sale price of the house was, what the commissions were related to it, if there's any like outstanding bills potentially for utilities with a particular municipality, and then at the bottom showing you what is left from the sale of the property, sort of thing. Yeah. So there also shouldn't be anything paid up front by a seller.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to know because, the whole experience is very overwhelming because it's your baby, it's your home. Maybe like you said, you've raised your kids there, you've got all this emotional attachment to it, and now you can hear the dollar signs in your head. Like, all of this is going to cost me a lot of money. So it's kind of nice to know that that's sort of like absorbed into those commission costs. So let's just talk about costs. Let's stay here for a minute because when we talked about prepping the house and the painting of the house and maybe some small repairs, maintenance work, that patch in the roof that needs to be fixed, all of those things, those are real expenses though, correct?
And typically some of those costs, those will be borne by a seller. So if we're talking about repainting a house for, I had this recently for a house in Sunnymead, good location, like really blue chip, great spot for individuals to live, slam dunk layout, perfect for a family.
Sounds
the
great.
house was a really good house, and we got multiple offers on it in the first couple days, which was really good. But we had the conversation with the seller about particular things that we should do to get the house ready to go. So we brought in, mulched the whole front yard, had some landscaping done by an in-house individual that LePage works with.
Okay.
And then through some other contacts, had the inside kind of completely repainted as well. That came at an expense. It was probably about 10 grand
Right.
on the property, which the sellers were happy to take on because it helped everything along. So when we're able to do some of those things, we're also putting up kind of like a little bit of a shield or stopping buyers agents from saying, we're offering this price because of this. Like if we can
Right.
kind of stop or litigate against some of those where they're coming through and saying, we got to repaint the whole thing, like that's 20 grand off. Well, no, we've already done that. And now
Yeah.
it shows better. And now it has a warmer atmosphere to it. So we're trying to, like, if we can, stop against some of those things along the way. And thankfully in this scenario, like we went into multiples, they got a return on the investment that they had put in threefold
Right.
to get the house ready to
So
to
the
sell.
10 grand that they put in, they more than recouped.
Correct. Yeah.
Because it was
In this scenario.
Yeah.
In this scenario.
Right.
Like it does depend on house to house, locations, everything like that. This is just one that was very clearly in need of it and
Yeah.
warranted it really well.
I think it depends on the repairs as well.
Yep.
Sometimes you'll hear, I know I've had my own situations where I can think of a time where this couple wanted to sell and they wanted to get top dollar. And they had done a ton of renovations to the house.
Yep.
But they never touched the kitchen. So it was sort of like that still, whatever it was,
Yep.
1970s style,
Yep.
which actually has really good bones, by the way. Like
There's
those
something to be said for it.
1970
Yeah, there's something to be
kitchens.
said for it.
And what they did basically, they had paint the fronts, put
Yep.
new hardware on them, and it looked fine.
Yeah.
Put a new countertop on. But they said, I think we're going to tear the whole thing out. We're going to put in an IKEA kitchen, and then we're going to get more money. And I strongly advised them against it
Mm-hmm.
because the rest of the house had looked so good and whatnot. After advising, they still decided to go ahead and spend whatever they did, 20 or 30,000
Yeah, you bet.
on a kitchen. It didn't really increase the value to the point that they got that return.
You bet. And then they've gone through a whole
Also,
process with it as well. Yeah.
Huge process. Didn't get the return that they wanted because the market was softer. And the buyer that went in ripped it out
Yeah. Go
and
figure. Yeah.
put in what they wanted to put
Yeah.
in. And so there's that risk too. So I think a realtor, can help sort of navigate some of those bigger things that they say, well, I'm going to do this. And then, anyway, I never did call them back and say, I told you so.
Yeah, that would be
But-
also an awkward conversation to have
It
along
would
the
be,
way.
yeah. But still, it's a lesson learned. I mean, and if you're thinking about some of those bigger projects, maybe think about that return. And are you going to get?
For sure. And
Yeah.
it plays back into the same thing, the location, what it is. Like you can invest a ton of money, do new flooring, new kitchen, new countertops on a house or a condo, but if it's not in the right location, you're just kind of throwing money away.
Yeah.
Same thing, color schemes and stuff like that. There's a reason show homes for new developments do particular things. Like they're lighter color cabinets, or, they're a white, right now an oak, pretty neutral painting colors because people can envision things, and it's
Yeah.
what you kind of see on social media as well. Countertops pretty neutral typically as well. Because there's certain things people can do. And it's the house that you live in. Like, if you're going to do renovations and you're going to be there 10 years, then go for it. Like, enjoy the house you live in. If you're getting a house ready for sale, it's not, you might not get your money back if you do a metal roof, if you're going to sell the house in a year, for something that has a huge amount of longevity if you're in a particular area. Like, if you're in a multi-million-dollar neighborhood and put a metal roof on, people are really going to value that.
Yeah.
If you're a baseline house in a different location, it's probably not worth 3 times the money you just spent on that. So,
Exactly.
neutrality is a big part of it, and knowing the location. I wish, and sellers, you probably should do this, is ask your realtor a little bit more on, should I do this or not? Like,
Right.
I appreciate getting emails, and I've been through 4 home renovations in the past 3 years here where we've taken things down to studs and built them back up, sort of thing. There are particular things you do want to do and don't want to do.
Yeah.
And there's no like blanket statement that you could say, yes, do this or don't do that. It kind of depends on the property.
So good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a really good point. Yeah, yeah, that's good. Awesome. So marketing. So we've kind of gone through the process of, what that looks like, the expenses involved. So let's get to the point of, okay, now it's on the market and we're good to go and we're kind of anticipating offers now. We're doing open houses, we're doing all the things. So what should sellers be looking for beyond price when they receive an offer?
So it comes down to the motivations of the seller. Again, do they need to move to a certain area in a particular timeline? Like price is typically the largest one for good reason,
Yeah.
right? It's, you need that money. It's going into an estate. It's your first purchase and you want to upsize, or it's your downsizing retirement money. Like it's very important. There are other things that do play into it for people that are selling a house. Like, is it a estate handling it? It's an emotional process. They just actually want to sell it and have funds into their account sooner. Okay, well, then there's a conversation to be had regarding different price points and stuff like that and how much you may want to move on it during kind of a negotiation sort of thing. This is my first little pause moment. Can you repeat?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think too, just to kind of keep you moving on it,
Yeah.
like things like, everybody wants the most money for
Yeah.
sure, but
Down
like
back. Yeah.
closing
Okay.
date.
Yep. Closing dates. Okay. Yeah. So closing dates play a big part in it, and also needing to line up particular aspects of an offer. Are you selling your house to go and purchase another one? So that's a subject to sale, time clause kind of scenario. Yes, you need to get X dollars from your house, but you also need to realize you need to get a buyer who's going to purchase your house that can line up closing dates,
Yeah.
that can do their due diligence in the time frame that you need them to, and pay the right amount. So usually when I'm pricing out houses with clients, there's the conversation. Are we listing this house first and finding something after? And there's a whole nother conversation about that, is if there's enough out there to be able to do that system. Are you okay with this risk or moving to something that you might have to do more work on to fit your criteria? But we also need to find someone that can do X, Y, and Z as well. And that might reflect out on the price. So if we're listing the house and we got, 6 months that we're really willing to give it a go, we can be at $1 million. If we need to get an offer in 3 weeks sort of thing, we might need to be at 950 to accommodate everything, to line up all these different aspects. There are certain things you can do to adjust that a little bit in something like a subject to sale scenario. Are you buying new construction that's flexible on closing dates? Then you can look at an offer that has some more. They might have a particular date that they need to hit, but you can be lenient on the side purchasing. So that plays into it. It's kind of like a number of different things that all do.
There really is. And I think too, like when we're talking about offers, we still are, even though we're in a balanced market, we are still seeing a lot of multiple offers.
Yep.
So if you've got 2 or 3 offers on the table in front of you, and they're at different price points, different, conditions, different closing dates, how are you navigating that with the seller?
It depends on what their priorities are, right? Is it we need to move by a particular date and this one nails the closing date, but it's $5,000 or $10,000 less? They'll make a judgment call on what that value is to them.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for an offer that is contingent on just an inspection for 3 days and the buyer's financially good to go. Because that's not an out for a buyer. Then they can't, if they don't have it in a contract, they can't say we couldn't get financing. Like that. They're going to be just looking at the inspection part of things. So then there's the conversation of this one has the best chance of getting across the finish line. This one has the best closing dates. This one has the best price. And explaining kind of the pros and cons of each of those scenarios. And that comes down to risk tolerance for the seller, right? I will gamble on the offer that is $20,000 more, but they have another house they need to sell, right? There's another link in the chain sort of thing.
Yeah.
How's it all going to play out? And they make the final call on it. It's their decision and it's their asset.
Yeah, but there might be another offer on the table that's $10,000 less than that one.
And it's streamlined and
but
done.
But it's a quicker closing, or
totally.
Even if it's, there's so many scenarios for sure, but I think from the seller's point of view, they need to remember that every month further out is another mortgage payment for
Yep.
them.
It all plays into it.
So, so whether you think, well, this one's more money, well, it could be more money, but the closing date could be longer, and
Yep.
then you're paying more, so it's not actually more money.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
It's weighing
yeah.
all that kind of stuff out. Same thing, just kind of doubling back for a moment when we were talking about kind of like the subject sales, looking at a particular offer and everything like that. Another conversation to have with individuals is bridge financing. So
Right.
this is something that basically if you have two kind of unconditional offers, you can change. Basically, you have an asset, someone's coming to buy your house, you can close on this house maybe a week or two sooner. So my wife and I did this with the last house we purchased. The home we purchased didn't have a bathtub for our kids, so we needed to do a quick reno. So in a couple weeks, we closed on the house 2 weeks sooner, had contractors come in, made that switch before we had to be out of our other house.
Right.
And that amount depends on how much you owe to the bank, how much you're borrowing, and a particular interest rate. And they'll always be able to give you the best idea. Depending on what you owe, maybe it's $2,000, but you buy yourself 2 or 3 more weeks, which makes the move less stressful.
Yes.
You can get some stuff done before you move in, and not have like kind of the chaos of living through renovations.
Yeah. So talk to your mortgage broker
Totally.
about, options that you have for that.
The whole selling process,
grace
you kind of got to
period.
talk to everybody, right?
Yeah.
You have to talk to, if it's a family ordeal, then you're having to talk to everybody there, realtor who's going to be assisting in the sale of the property, speaking with your lawyer, if there's any particular aspects to kind of keep in
Right.
mind, speaking with whoever your lender is, bridge financing, how much money's left on the mortgage, if there's any penalties to break that, to discharge it. Did you take a mortgage that gave you an upfront kind of like signing bonus?
Right.
Does that have to be paid back? How much of it? Do you have like second mortgages on there?
Yeah.
Like there's research to do.
Yeah.
The more time you are able to provide a realtor to get a property organized, the more streamlined it's all going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, something you touched on just then kind of sparked an idea in my mind too, is like when you bought the house, how many ever years ago you bought it, you may have had a co-signer on there. You may have had your parents, maybe your parents are on the title. So check your title, I think probably early
sure.
on as well.
Yep.
And make sure that like, do I own this place outright, or does somebody else have to help us
Yep.
sign these documents? Like those are
You bet.
all things that definitely you want to prepare for, because those could come up pretty quickly and
You
be
bet.
like, oh.
And a lot of people, like if they've lived in a house for 20 years, they don't necessarily remember what like a title is. What's on
Exactly.
there? I'd like to think someone would know if there's a lien on the property that's holding things up, but you never know.
Yeah.
There can be a divorce where somebody's put something
Right,
particular
a
on
pending
title
litigation
that's going to
yeah.
hold things up or needs to be discharged
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So there's a whole speculation tax is something that we're seeing on titles where if someone's not paying it, then there's a government charge on title kind of thing.
Yeah.
How much do I owe on that? What's the recourse? And then that's a lawyer question. So yeah, there's a lot to kind of keep in
There
mind.
is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing too, we're just like, as we're talking it through, I'm like, oh yeah, then there's like the whole, and a lot of people in Victoria do this. They have a suite
Yeah.
in their home that they're now selling. And so there are tenancy issues there that you need to discuss with your realtor, and, how does that happen? Like if we're closing and we're moving on, there's implications there for that renter.
Yeah,
And
you
so
bet.
how do we, navigate that too?
And
So
it's going
that
over-
could be a whole other episode.
And it should be. It honestly should
It
be,
really should
because
be.
it depends if you have a house with a tenant downstairs. Is it a straight rental property?
Yeah.
And in the first 12 months, or are they month to month after that? Are you selling multifamily with a number of them? Is a buyer asking for a property to be
Yeah.
vacant? Like that's another conversation.
It
yeah.
is a whole other, but
Yeah.
it's definitely worth bringing up at this
Yep.
point, I think, because
And it's something
it
you
is
have
a
to
piece
chat
of
through
it.
with
Absolutely.
sellers. Like if they have a rental property, the realtor is going to be in touch with the tenants throughout the process and
Yes.
organizing all that kind of stuff. I handle a kind of a number of foreclosures that are tenanted and stuff like that. So it's going through the bank and chatting with tenants that aren't necessarily, they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
They don't know why the house is being foreclosed on if they've been paying rent. Like there's all
Right.
kinds of like different things that do play into
Yeah.
it. So the more time you have for more research, the better.
Yeah, we're going to have to do a tenancy one for sure.
Yeah.
Because you're right, because, you may have a secondary property that is fully tenanted.
Yep.
It's another house that you have. There's tenants in there. What is there, and you're wanting to offload that one because you need the equity for something else, or you don't want to do the rental game anymore. And so there's tons of implications around how to sell that kind of property. So certainly talk to a realtor.
Yeah.
Make sure
it's
that
the first,
you understand
it's kind of
all
on the
of
selling
that.
side, it's the first starting point.
Yeah.
And they should be able to kind of guide you and direct you. This is the conversation to go have with your lender. This is what I say,
Totally.
go talk to the lawyer and stuff like that. And yeah.
So good. Yeah, those are all really good things. Okay, so we're going to do some quick fire questions here. You're going to kind of think of like the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask you. And the third one is always the funny one. So we'll see if what you think here. So the
right.
first one is, what's the number one thing a seller can do to add value fast?
Again, it kind of comes back to the same sort of thing. It as simple as it is, it's decluttering and trying to make the space neutral. Like it's kind of some family photos coming down. Like let's say you have 100 photos of your dog and you love dogs and I love dogs.
Yeah.
But maybe the person coming in is allergic or they had a bad experience with it or whatever it may be and they don't like animals. Make it more neutral because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Minimal. Look towards show homes. Like there's a reason why they stage things a particular way. Staging, for example, it helps a house sell 35% quicker than a home that's not staged if it's a vacant house.
That's a great point, staging. So is that something that you kind of bring into conversations
Yeah,
as
like
well?
we have stagers, like for us, like we'll pay for the consultation just to bring somebody in.
Right.
Because they might even say, you know, we need to do the whole thing, or they can fluff up a space where they bring in new pillows, different artwork, table sets, all this kind of stuff to show the property a little bit better. So we have some of those contacts that we'll make the recommendation for. Again, seller makes the decision at the end of the day on what they want to do, but it's our job to provide the best opinion on it. Staging a property, if it's vacant, if it's new construction or whatnot, yes, it costs money, but if it sells the house quicker and you are not having to pay a crazy high construction mortgage on the house, it can help. And then you can defend that price point. There's something to be said for a house that's on the market for 20 days and getting an offer or 90 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, too, just being open to suggestions.
Totally.
As a seller, you know, this is the way you've lived in the house, and that worked for you. But maybe, you know, obviously, as an agent, we want to get the best price, get the best buyer. And so maybe those conversations are going to have to be like, hey, you've got a large living dining room space, and your dining room is currently in another bedroom. So we need to take that out of there, make that look like an actual bedroom.
Yep.
And just kind of being open to those suggestions. Well, no, I don't want to do that because this is the way. No, you kind of have to
and I think
work with us here.
If someone prefaces it correctly, like this is your home, my job's to make the recommendation. You don't have to listen to any of it. You're not going to hurt my feeling, but I also wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you these things.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, what's one common pricing mistake that sellers make?
Ooh. I mean, there's an argument that could be made about pricing too high right off the get-go and stuff like that. There is something, like chasing the market down isn't necessarily a great position to be in. So if we provide a price band, let's say it's 1.5 to 1.6, and they say we're going to try 1.7. Again, it's your asset. You make the decision on what you'd like to do with it. But if you're not getting interest and the days on market goes up and you're canceling and relisting and you're chasing the market down, you kind of stigmatize property. And the realtors that are looking at a property history or the general public, they're going to start thinking something's wrong with a house off the get-go. Like, has it failed a number of inspections? Because the buyers don't know.
Yeah.
Unless they start asking questions, they don't know off the get-go. And we're in a market that's pretty balanced. Buyers have the opportunity to kind of go to different houses, select which one's going to be the best. They're going to kind of see through the fact that this house is 200 grand more than everything else that's selling in the neighborhood. And unless there's very clear justification for it, or unless a listing agent can portray or explain that why to a buying agent and a buyer, then you're going to be kind of chasing it down. It's not necessarily the best position to be in.
Yeah, you're just losing momentum, really.
Losing momentum. Like your best chance is in the first few weeks when listing a house. And this is why I was saying, you've got to try to do everything you can. Organizing the open houses, social media goes up right away. Like, do it all off the get-go so that the only thing that's left later is either market conditions and bigger economic factors that play, or it's likely priced too high.
Right.
Like you do everything you can to market the property off the get-go to take away those other questions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for the seller that really is looking for that top dollar and is really set on their price, like there are sellers out there that, they're putting their foot down and I want 1.7 and it's worth 1.4. as an agent, you have a couple of options. You can
Yep.
say, then I'm not your agent.
And that's a business decision.
And
You
we
bet.
do that,
Yep.
right?
I have
there
done
are,
that.
yeah.
100%.
We don't take all the business
Yep.
that comes our way.
Yep.
And then the other piece is then, okay, we're going to do that, but we're going to set up a schedule of reductions.
Yep,
And say,
it's a
in 2
conversation
weeks,
to be had.
if,
Yep.
like kind
You
of
bet.
set that out ahead of time.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
setting
we'll
the
try
tone
it
on
your
that.
way first, and then.
And that
you
comes
know.
back to the same thing, statistical data. Like if we're looking at the
Yeah.
average home on market is 32 days in your neighborhood, that includes the time someone's doing their due diligence for say 10 days of that. That means you want to see an offer in the first like 22 days.
Yeah.
And if not, what's not working correctly?
Yeah.
And is it the price? Is it factors outside of our control, economic? Is it the way the yard faces that just nobody likes?
Right.
It all plays into it.
Yeah. So before I get to my last quick fire question, I wanted to double back to the offer part because there was a question that I had when we were talking about offers, and I want to get your opinion on it.
Okay.
Maybe this is another quick fire question, but I have heard it said before that your first offer is your best. Is that true?
I don't think you can say 100%
Okay.
because you don't know. Like there can be, I think the longer you do this, you get an idea
Yeah.
because a buyer's agent is instructed by their clients to write an offer on a property at the price that they see fit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our job as a listing agent to pass that offer along. Get the offer, explain to the sellers. If that buyer's agent's been instructed to write something that is not reasonable, and it's our job to pass it along, we'll provide our opinion. So not always, but more often than not, the first is usually the best because a buyer is excited. They might have been looking for a while. This is the one that fits their needs. They might be sick of the process and they just want to be done, and they're very invested to try to get a deal across the finish line. And they've made a very clean offer, for example. So more often than not, yes, the first one is the best with an asterisk next to it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. If Selling Smart was a TV show, what would it be called?
Oh. I don't know. I'd say a team effort. Like it really is something that I'd like a seller to understand where we're coming from. And for like myself and my business partner, Brendan, we also have our assistant. So it is a team effort kind of working things behind the scenes where like our assistant, Nicole, handles like a lot of our social media, paperwork, all this kind of stuff that keeps everything running smooth so that Brendan and I can kind of focus on relations with realtors, what's happening, making sure everything's going through its due diligence correctly, making sure stagers are there, the photographers at the right time. And then with sellers, like I set an expectation. It sounds kind of silly, but I need a seller to be present and understand that like if we have 5 showings on a Saturday, we could see an offer that evening. I'd like you to be in cell service to know what's going on. Are we listing your house and you're going to be straight like just out of country for a week? I need to kind of be able to reach you, or I need to set expectations for other agents. So it is a team effort. I need to be able to communicate. Same thing on the buying side. Like I need to be able to understand where buyers are at and their mindset and stuff like that. But it kind of takes everybody through the whole process to make it work smoothly.
So it's kind of a reality show, and maybe it's like a Top Chef kind of a thing. You've got, your team is there. Nicole's like the sous chef.
Yeah,
and,
it all plays into it.
Yeah,
and
really.
the more experience, the better we can allocate everybody at their particular jobs. It's just a smoother running system.
Yeah.
Like it's buying a house is a big process. Or buying a house, selling a house, like it's a big process, and there's a lot of emotions involved. But it can also be fun along the way too. Like you can be, I'd like to think everyone's very excited about when they sell the house and it all is done. And yes, it's a serious matter, but you can also smile along the way and have fun.
Totally.
Yeah.
It can be very fun. Even in those difficult times when it's like, an estate sale or, you've lost somebody or.
Sometimes those can kind of be the bigger wins at the end of the day. Yeah. Because it takes other stress off that you don't know how long that's been going on before.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I think this has been really informative. I think, I think some of the messaging that we're trying to get across is it doesn't have to be stressful. You've got a team of people your realtors, your lawyers, your mortgage people, everybody is in your corner to get you to sell this place. So I think it's informative and it can be very exciting. So,
It should be.
So if you are thinking about selling, Mike and his team are a great option for you. I'm sure we have someone within Royal LePage that could help you, but Mike has definitely brought a lot of flavor and information to us today. Mike, closing comments from you, anything you want to say?
Yeah, it kind of comes back to what I was saying. It can be a fun process. You can smile about it. There is a lot of information to kind of go through, but whoever's going to be helping through it will hopefully break it down in a really detailed format, and the better roadmap there is, the less surprises there are later. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Well, thank
my
you
pleasure.
for joining us today. Mike's information and his team information will be found along with this podcast. You can also now see us on Spotify, so you can join us and subscribe at Spotify. We would love to hear from you. Be sure to reach out and give us your feedback. If there are topics that you would like to hear moving forward, we'd love to know about that too. So all of that information is here for you alongside this podcast. Thank you so much again for joining us today on this important conversation around selling. Maybe you're looking at your walls right now and thinking, I don't know if this hunter green is the right color for me. Maybe we should do some prep work, whatever that looks like. Good luck to you. And please join us here again on the Red Chair podcast in the future. Take care. We'll see you again.